guys, what's going on? Drewzy here, and today coming at you with yet another Diablo video, and coming here with my first build guide for the Necromancer here on Diablo 3. The Necromancer, of course, came out a few days ago with the update on Tuesday, and just want to go through a build guide of a build that I'm currently using with the Necromancer, mostly due to the fact that I got a lot of great feedback from the first Diablo video I posted on the channel, so I'm going to go ahead give you some more Diablo content. More excited, of course, for Season 11, which will start later this month at the end of July, but I've dubbed this build the Bonenado build, and the reasons why I went with the Bonenado build I will obviously show you throughout the course of this video. So I'm going to go ahead, start off showing you the skills, show you the items that I used for this build. I do apologize in the beginning because I probably will mispronounce some of these items, but then towards the end of the video I will go ahead and show you some gameplay footage of me going through a rift as well. So gonna go ahead, first item of course in the build is the Drewzy's Corroded Fang. So one of the big things of course is the fact that you don't really need to use a one-handed and an offhand with this build. You can go with a two-handed weapon. I did get a decent roll on this. I got a crappy roll with my two-handed scythe. So those are the two options, and I will show you again the cubed item that you should use either or main hand or in the cube. So this is the offhand, the Legger's Disdain. I will talk about this a little bit later on throughout the course of the video, but one of the main reasons to use it is for the Grim Scythe ability. Gives you increased damage with Essence, and Grim Scythe is probably the main skill that you're using to pump out damage, which is a primary attack, and with most of these high Diablo Greater Rift Clear builds, you don't have a primary as your main attack. But in this build, however, so far for the Necromancer, one of the best builds out there right now is this, what I call Bonenado. It's also called Bone Storm. It's called a couple different things, but if you're going to use this build, you need this Corroded Fang, and you need obviously the offhand that I just showed you. This weapon helps buff the Cursed Scythe Ruin that you're going to use on your Cursed Scythe ability in the skill line by giving an increased chance to not only curse someone, but also increases damage to anyone that is actually cursed. So this really helps the damage of Cursed Scythe, which is the main ability that you're using as far as most of your, a decent amount of your damage, not all of your damage, because there are a lot of other skills that really pump out a little bit more damage than the Cursed Scythe does, but Cursed Scythe is your primary attack that you're going to be using while your skills are in cooldown. So this weapon either needs to be cubed or definitely needs to be on as your main hand. You can use it, again, in both capacities, but it's definitely necessary. So the green 6-piece set that you must have for this build to be the best is the Grace of Inarius set. So the Grace of Inarius set is the main 6-piece set for this build to even work, and even for the Bonenado itself to even be a thing. You need all 6 pieces of this set: the head, the feet, the legs, the chest, the shoulders, and the hands. If you don't, because you're going to need to be able to have 2 different rings, so you cannot have a Ring of Royal Grandeur as one of your items. So as you see here, the 6-piece set gives you this bone armor, also activates a tornado of damage that goes around you that does significant weapon damage, and it also increases the amount of damage the Necromancer does as well. It does not specify in this wording that the Necromancer's abilities do more damage or the Necromancer's primary attack does more damage. It just says it does more damage as the Necromancer. So leave a comment below what you think that really means. In my honest opinion, I think it just means that its primary ability is buffed. Some of the skills I'm sure are buffed as well, but I think it mostly focuses on the Grim Scythe doing more damage than the abilities themselves or the skills. But let me know what you think in the comments below if you think that you know the true answer, because in my honest opinion, I don't fully know why that wording is a little bit different than some of the others. It usually specifies one or the other, but in this one it doesn't. And wording is everything in this game, even if you don't think that. So this wording matters. So again, let me know what you think below, but I think it more focuses on the primary attack, more so than the skills, but we'll kind of see as this build develops, as they buff this, make changes throughout the game, maybe that wording will change at some point. But so far, this is still the best 6-piece set for it. So as you see here, I got the crit hit chance with these gloves. I was able to get, intelligence, vitality, and a big thing that you really need is the cooldown. So I re-rolled for the cooldown reduction for all skills, because one of these skills is a 2-minute delay, and you really need to be able to get your skills and pump them out as quickly as possible. So the main thing I did with the gloves was increase the cooldown, because the roll that I got with everything else was still pretty good. Not upset by at all with the roll that I was able to get in this build. and with some of the other items. So with the shoulders, again, rerolled for more cooldown, and I'm able to get the bone armor damage, which is really nice because bone armor is one of the main abilities that you're going to be using to pump out the most damage. I was able to get some life per second. I mean, obviously life per hit is better than life per second. For those who don't play Diablo a lot, it is always better to get life per hit than life per second. Life per second is a slow rebuild throughout the course of fighting, where life per hit is every time you hit, you get, some life back. For the chest piece, of course, again, you still need the same 6-piece set piece. I have armor, I have lightning resistance, thorn damage, not necessarily a thing. You definitely need the 3 sockets for the gems. For your gems, generally, if you're going for more defensive, you definitely want diamonds in there. If you're looking for more damage, topaz is the way to go because this is an intelligence-based build. So topaz increases your intelligence, which increases your overall damage, whereas diamonds increase your overall resist all elements, which is your main defense in this game. Much better than life percentage. Life percentage is obviously something that you need at some point throughout the course of most builds to get higher greater rift pushing. Not necessarily so far in this build. With the helmet, got a pretty decent roll, got intelligence, vitality, was able to get armor. My friend re-rolled for the armor in that, and then of course you do want to socket a gem, a diamond gem, of course, in your helmet for that increased cooldown. On all my jewelry, I was able to get a Primal Ancients, which was kind of the luck of the draw. Obviously, everything is luck of the draw as far as your gear is concerned. But I was able to get a good Traveler's Pledge, able to reroll for the crit chance. Already had the crit damage, but you definitely want the Endless Walk set, which is one of the best sets in the entire game. Almost every high Great Rift clears has the Endless Walk set, which of course you need a Compass Rose Rain and the Traveler's Pledge amulet to do that. And of course it increases the amount of damage you do while standing still and lowers the amount of damage you take, increases your resistance while moving. So that's the big buff about the Endless Walk set, so you definitely want those. I was able to, again, get crit chance, get crit damage and intelligence, so got a very good roll on my Traveler's Pledge. It already had a socket on it too. Probably one of the best rolls I could have ever gotten. Then the Compass Rose, again, you need that Compass Rose to complete the Endless Walk set, which is almost a necessity in all Great Rift cleared builds. And then, not the greatest Compass Rose, unfortunately, so but I did re-roll it for reduced cooldown because you get ridiculous increased cooldown reduction on jewelry. So that's what I went with my re-roll. You can go it a couple different ways. If you need more damage, you could probably do crit damage. I think more crit damage over crit chance. You usually need about a 1-to-10 ratio as far as crit hit to crit damage. So for every about 10%, you need about 100 in crit damage. For every 10% you have in crit chance. So if you have 40 crit chance, you need about 400 crit damage. Is usually the best way to go. This is one of the new rings that came out with this update. It's the Crispins. The Crispins is almost a necessity, in my opinion, throughout this build. As you see in the description, you're going to do 100% more damage to somebody that is crippled, or slowed, and then, as you see, then you'll do triple the damage to anyone of any other impairing effect. So it's just almost a necessity throughout this build because there's a lot of skills that you're really going to utilize the multiple stun options with this comp, and the fact that you do triple the damage. You really struggle, in my opinion, with damage with this build. It's more of a defensive build, kind of hybrid, so you need that extra damage. I didn't get a great roll with my Crispins. I did re-roll for crit hit damage because I did have pretty decent percentage of crit hit chance, but I had pretty low crit hit damage. This is where the flexibility comes and the risks. You can go a bunch of different ways. If you want to, be able to clear rifts quickly, then Nemesis Bracers are the way to go because you're going to, spawn in some champions whenever you affect a pylon. So, I would suggest Nemesis Bracers. I didn't get a great roll on my Nemesis Bracers. If you get a better roll on your wrists, you can pretty much go any way you want. Definitely want to go with a more defensive option than anything else. But my Nemesis Bracers, decent roll. But again, that's where your true, options come in. Then, of course, again, you're going to go with the Legacy Discord for your offhand. And I got a pretty decent roll on this. That's one of the main reasons why I kind of kept my main hand and offhand the way they were. But again, you can go with a two-handed scythe if you get a better roll on a two-handed scythe than you do with your offhand and your main hand, because you don't really need this. You do, this definitely helps, makes Grim Scythe a little bit stronger, but again, you're going to kind of mix between Grim Scythe doing a decent amount of damage and some of your other skills, especially Bone Armor and Corpse Explosion, which I'll talk about as we go through the skill tree. So again, for the pants, I'm sorry, then for the belt, you definitely want to go with Dante's Binding, and the main reason for that is because of the Decrepify skill, which is one of the skills that we're using, gives you an increase buff to your, protections after you cast it. So, it's very nice. I think this can roll up to 50%. I only got it to 44. And not the greatest roll on this belt. Probably could get a little bit decent and better rolls with the percent life, armor, vitality, and intelligence. This belt is going to be pretty decent survivability increase, but probably be a little bit better in the damage department. For the pants, yet again, definitely going to want to go with the same 6-piece set. Again, not the greatest roll either. You definitely want the sockets for the gems. And then I re-rolled there for Grim Scythe damage, which can roll, of course, at a max of 15%, but I have re-rolled it currently to 14%. Might re-roll it around a few more times to get to 15, but didn't feel like doing it right away. And then finally for the boots, again, the 6-piece set is the way you want to go. My friend re-rolled for the armor. You could change that around a little bit, because there's a couple different options. I did keep the increased movement speed. You don't really need that. That's probably one of the most you can debate back and forth whether it's useful or not. It can be useful in certain fights against bosses and things like that, but outside of that, movement speed not overly necessary unless you're trying to speed rift clear. Then it can obviously be of value. So now we're going to go to the gems. Gems, I use Bane of the Trapped. Main reason, Bane of the Trapped, arguably by most Diablo players, greatest gem in the game. Gives you that aura to people under effects to do increased damage to them, which is extremely nice because it really helps with the damage output that you're doing with all the different skills we're using and all the different types of things like that. Another one you're going to go with Pain Enhancer, and the reason for Pain Enhancer, when you crit hit, you have an increased chance to cause a bleed that does a substantial amount of weapon damage. You definitely need that damage output because of the fact that this is more of a resistance build, so you need any bit of extra damage you can get, and Blood Frenzy also increases your attack speed, which is nice as well. Definitely going to help you also with that damage output. So those are 2 gems, and then the flexibility you have is with the 3rd gem. So with the 3rd gem, you can kind of go a couple different ways. I went with Gogoth for the swiftness to increase my cooldowns, which is nice. But again, you can kind of go a couple different ways. I've seen, some people have started using Mazanames has been one. But, I like Gogoth for swiftness. A lot of my other friends really kind of like it. I've tried a few of the other different gems. Wasn't able to really truly affect my damage output, but I figured with Gogoth the swiftness, increasing my cooldowns would be a nice little buff. But again, this one's really the flexibility part is the 3rd one, so kind of experiment with what you want with the 3rd gem, and let me know in the comment section below if you found something that was better than Gogoth. I do like Gogoth. It's one of the better ones for a lot of higher grade lift clears. So now that we've broken down the gear, we're going to switch real quick and show you the skills that you need to use for this build. So the first skill, again, Grim Scythe is the main one you're going to want to go with. You're going to go with the Ruin for Curse Scythe, which then has a chance to inflict a random curse on everybody, which, of course, remember, definitely helps with your main hand and your offhand. You need to be able to curse to be able to pump out that additional damage. This is the best primary ability in the game for this current build. Not saying it's the best by far in the game, but definitely if you're going with this build, with the Bonenado build, or whatever you want to call it, this is the way you want to go as far as your primary skill is concerned. Then as we go to the second skill, the Bone Armor. So the Bone Armor is one of the main things that you need to keep up as much as possible. And with the Ruin, enemies that are hit are also stunned, which is really nice. Again, you want to be able to do all those stun damages, stuns, all those different types of effects, so that it helps your Bane of the Trapped and helps your overall damage output as well with some of the other items that we're currently using, especially with your Crispins, things like that. But cast Bone Armor every single time the cooldown is done. It's a pretty quick cooldown, about 10 seconds, but that's lowered with some of your other cooldown abilities. Usually I notice every about 4 to 5 seconds, it's ready to go. So, and again, the Wisdom of Kalan, it's one of the things you're going to be cubing. It gives you 5 more stacks to Bone Armor, which you get 10 by default with the Bone Armor, and then you get the extra 5 with the cubed item. So you can either wear that amulet or you need it cubed, but you need those extra 5 stacks if you want to be able to survive a lot better with the Bone Armor. So for the next ability, this is going to be your main damage ability. It's going to be in the Corpses tree. So I went with Corpse Explosion. I went with Corpse Explosion, one, because it's probably my favorite, one of my favorite skills in the entire game for any character. It's just really fun to use. Corpse Explosion. I like close quarters. You can go with a couple different runes for this. I like that it explodes close to me because you're a melee character with this build, so you're kind of right up in the fray, kind of right up around the enemies. And I think just having that Corpse Explosion close to you is nice. But if you're not going to go with Corpse Explosion, Corpse Lance is by far your best option, and probably honestly the better of the two options as far as overall damage. And when you go with Corpse Lance, you want Brittle Touch, which increases your crit chance. Every time you crit, you increase their chance to get crit again with Corpse Lance, which is really nice. But Corpse Explosion, Corpse Lance, but in all honesty, probably the better way to go is with Corpse Lance. With Decrepify, again, you need that Decrepify, which the cursed enemies have a chance to be stunned when hit. So of course, as you're stunning with Grim Scythe, or you then have the fact that you can then stun all those people with the Decrepify once you cast it. And then Land of the Dead, this is probably the most important skill and the best skill for the Necromancer, which has a 2-minute cooldown, as you see, 120 seconds, but it allows you to do all your corpse abilities, so either the Corpse Lance or the Corpse Explosion, unlimitedly during the duration. You want the Frozen Lands rune, because the Frozen Lands rune will freeze people in place, and it can make it to where basically there are times where people just don't move at all, which of course makes Bane of the Trapped better, and a whole lot of other things better. So Frozen Lands, Land of the Dead, you want to cast Land of the Dead almost every time you have a big mob of enemies. That's when you use it, or against a Rift boss or Rift Guardian or another boss throughout the game, because that's where you're going to be pumping out the most damage. Your get in, get out ability is Blood Rush, which is nice because unfortunately it does lose some of your health. So if you notice, you lose 5% of your health every time you cast it. It has a pretty short cooldown, but watch that because you can take significant damage from it. But the Potency is probably the best rune for it, which increases your armor for a short duration after casting it. So it gives you a little bit of extra survivability. So not only do you get out, but then it increases your armor a little bit, which is nice to help try to keep you alive, even because you just stole damage from yourself. For the passives, Overwhelming Essence increases your maximum essence, which is very useful for a variety of different reasons. I'll show you with the cubed item why you need it. Blood's Power is nice. After you lose a life ability, it reduces your cooldown, so when you use your Blood Rush, again, you're losing power, but then you get some nice cooldown buff. So then for your third passive, Spreading Malediction, really helps out. You receive a 1% damage bonus for every enemy afflicted by one of your curses, and again, you're just pumping out all those curses with Grim Scythe, so this helps you give a nice little damage bonus, which again, you need all the damage help you can get with this build. With the fourth passive, you can be kind of, change this up a little bit, standalone, gives you a nice increase to armor. You don't have minions, so your minion, isn't pumped out, but it still gives you a nice armor increase to help your survivability. You can also go with Swift Harvesting, increases your Grim Scythe attack speed. That could be a nice way to go if you need a little bit more damage. I really like the standalone, however, because it gives me a nice buff to my armor, which gives me a nice little bit of extra survivability. If you're going to go, then again, with the cubed items, the Shadow Hook is either going to be an item that you need equipped or an item you need cubed, because every point of max essence gives you increased damage of 0.5%. That's one of the main reasons why you need the passive that gives you the increase to your essence, because it's going to give you even more damage because it gives you default more essence as well. So then also you're going to want Aqueous Curious, which is really nice, gives you a nice, as your primary resource stays up, you get reduced damage of 50%, which is extremely nice. Your primary resource, you're not really using any essence with this build at all, so you're going to constantly have this up, which is just going to give you a nice, huge sustain buff, which is going to keep you alive and keep you very well protective. And then finally, your last item, Wisdom of Kalan, gives you that +5 to bone armor from 10 stacks to 15. This is a necessity. This needs to be worn, or you can use or cube it. A lot of people really like the Endless Walk set, but if you're not using the Endless Walk set, you need the Wisdom of Kalan as your amulet. So these are all the skills, these are all of the passives, and all of the items that you need for this build. Now I'm going to show you some footage of me going through a rift here in the rest of the video. So starting off here at the very beginning of the rift, the main thing you're going to want to do, go to a group of enemies and get your bone armor up. Activate your bone armor, get those stacks to 15 as quickly as possible, because it's just going to help you be able to get that defense up. And then as you see here, I use Land of the Dead and the Corpse Explosion to be able to take out the mobs of enemies. Again, either go with Corpse Explosion or go with Corpse Lance. You see all those corpses on the ground. That's what you need in order to do the most amount of damage. Just go around in groups of enemies. You might struggle early on in the game as far as clearing the rift. It might look like you're not going to be able to clear the rift as the bar kind of ticks down, but once you get to some mobs of elite enemies, that's why the Nemesis bracers are so nice, because it gives you those champions. So you see here I kind of struggle with the one enemy, able to do a lot of damage more so to a group of enemies, but I don't really, again, I don't really think this build is more designed, in my opinion. Maybe I just don't have all the right items as far as a solo rift. I really think it works well in a greater rift as far as when you have multiple things. But here you go, seeing me activate the bone armor, activate all the Land of the Dead. I don't have Land of the Dead quite yet, so I'm just activating my bone armor to keep me alive, activating the corpse explosions when the corpses present themselves, using the Crepify to slow as well, and then you see here Land of the Dead comes back. I activate this, activate that, and then I'm just able to just pump out all this damage to these champions and things like that. Now this build is not perfect by any stretch of imagination. You can die. Molten and poison seem to be the bane of my existence, as I did die, and then I did cut that part out, but I did die a few times throughout this rift. So, it wasn't a perfect run by any stretch of the imagination. And again, I'm just still kind of feeling this build out. It's by no means perfect, but it's still very strong. And it's probably, in my opinion, if you want to use the Necromancer, which a lot of people are really doing right now, obviously, because it just came out, this is, my opinion, the best build for it. You can also go with the pet build. That's another popular one with the Necromancer. May do a video on that when I get the gear for it. I do not have all the gear for the pet build quite yet. But, running around the rift, trying to find, obviously in a greater rift, you want to clear it as fast as possible, find big groups of enemies, and then just do as much damage as humanly possible. So obviously I'm just picking my way through these enemies. There is an elite behind me, but I'm just kind of going through, killing everybody as I can, activating my bone armor, activating the corpse explosions, doing slowing down enemies, keeping them contained, and then just spamming them with either Corpse Lance or Corpse Explosion. I went with Corpse Explosion, as I explained earlier, because I liked it more. Going to the second part, another big mob of enemies, hitting with that bone armor initially to do that damage, get as many kills as I can, and then activate Land of the Dead, and then hit them with those Corpse Explosions. So you see, when you don't have Land of the Dead ready, you're going to die very quickly because you just can't kill enough enemies fast enough. Land of the Dead just so necessary. That's why the cooldown is so important, for you just to be able to activate the bone armor, as you see here, then hit there, and as you see, I'm standing in 3 things of Molten and still get out of it without dying. So if you have if you have your bone armor up, it's just going to give you that survivability. If you don't have it up, you're going to die very quickly, and it's just going to be very frustrating for you. But one of the nice things, as you noticed when I died, one of the nice things they added in this last update was they allowed you to skip the cooldown timer on deaths and greater rifts, only in solo, however, not in team rifts. But in a solo rift, if you're solo greater rifting by yourself, you get that cooldown, or you get that reduction to the actual kill. So I'm going to show you me fighting the Rift Guardian. And I do struggle because this is one of the harder Rift Guardians. If for anyone that plays Diablo, this guy is one of the strongest ones. But as you see, he's not moving at all. My frozen and all my ability to just keep him contained and sustained, keep him stunned for a significant period of time. And unfortunately, if I was able to pump out more damage with this build, I probably would have easily killed him in that stunned state, which he's able to throw. He's throwing down a lot of poison. You see, as I walk around in his poison, unfortunately, I take substantial amounts of damage. I'm just waiting for Land of the Dead to come back. So I'm casting my bone armor as much as I can, hit him with the Decrepify, and then now here I'm laying down with Land of the Dead, hitting him with my Corpse Explosion or Corpse Lance, whichever of the two that you have. Corpse Lance is probably much better for killing a Rift Guardian than what I'm doing. And unfortunately, his poison gets me and I die here, but then I'm able to just immediately respawn back in. And then run over here, wait a second, activate bone armor immediately, hit him with some stuns to kind of keep him contained, and then use my Corpse Explosion and other abilities to whittle him down to hopefully to kill him. And as you see here, I die in the poison at the end, unfortunately. It's able to get me, but I'm able to walk over here, pick up all my beautiful loot at the end of it, even though I didn't really get anything of value, unfortunately. But I've got all the items I need for this current build, so it was okay, able to level up my gym as well. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys enjoyed the build guide. This is my build guide for Bonenado for the Necromancer. Let me know how you felt about the build. If you think I need to improve some stuff, let me know in the comment section. Like the video if you enjoyed the video. Also subscribe to the channel for more content in Diablo, in other games that I'm playing. I play Smite. I also am going to start playing Sea of Thieves when that comes out. But really looking forward to Season 11 here in Diablo, and you'll be seeing a lot of content then. Until then, my name's Drewzy. Peace out.